Let's dance, asshole. Oh, hello, hi. How are you guys? How's everybody doing? Gene, Jonathan, how are you? Can everybody hear me okay? How's everybody doing? Oh, ours, welcome in. Welcome in, Joshy Poo. Thank you for the subscription. You're on a 9-month streak? Yeah, FF10 music? I like FF10 music. I actually like FF10. I just like to tease about it. I don't know why. It's probably not a good part of my personality. Yo, welcome in, Devontae. Roland 81, Gene, R, Secret Lemon Face. Welcome everybody. Kayla Daly, first time making a live Baby Seal broadcast. I'm so stoked. I'm stoked too. Holy shit. Welcome in. How's everybody doing? Let's see. I like this. Good dude. Okay. This is Final Fantasy Lo-Fi Radio from Singford to Laughter. And I love me some Blinded by the Light. Or Blinded by Light. But so we're doing TGA follow-up today, right? So couple things. I was able to submit some questions to Hamaguchi and Katase, and I got some answers. And I'm just waiting for some permission to release some of those. Some were asked in a public Q&A, and I can talk about anything that happened there. Strangely, even though a lot of people were filming, a full upload of the Q&A session hasn't really happened yet. Just little bits, including my question. But there was some spicy stuff in there. And I do know Square Enix recorded the whole thing, so I do expect that to come out in some form or fashion. But there was some stuff. The questions that I submitted and the answers there, I'm being told to wait on some of the answers because they were really spicy. So I'm just doing that. So 10 was the last one you really enjoyed of the numbered entries. I mean, honestly, the Reddit AMA was after the Q&A, and I think part of the reason they were so conservative is because of how not conservative they were at the Q&A and during the interviews. And there was a but I was asked some questions too, and one of the things that I was asked, because they're trying to understand the community a little bit, and one of the things I was asked about is what's going on with Willem Dafoe. What is that? And it was hard to explain, and then wait for it to get translated and then explained, and then it just like I almost was like, you wouldn't get it, man. I think, I mean, like the truth is like one time, Sleep Easy and I were having a conversation, and one person. Oh yeah, that's the. Hold on. Oh, hi, Jano. Let me put the alert box on top so that you guys can see that Willem Dafoe thing. It's like one time Sleep Easy and I like made some weird reference to Willem Dafoe. I don't even remember what it was and how he should be in the game somehow. And then one other person who I will not name like immediately came back and did like a face swap of Willem Dafoe. And then it just turned into this viral thing. I have not ever made a Willem Dafoe gif, nor will I ever. Um, but I'm not against them. I think they're great. But like, it's just one of those things. It's like, there's more than, it's not just one guy. Like one guy may have started it and did two or three of them, but then it became this thing where a bunch of people were doing it. That's just how stuff works. Like, that's the internet. It's a meme, like literally. Okay. So Jano, for a whole year, man, I love it. Okay. So they asked me about that, and I just explained that it's literally just a meme. There's nothing of substance beyond that. But Willem Dafoe is one of the greatest living actors. He's going to, he's, uh, a legend, and you should definitely involve him somehow. Um, yeah. Angela's Noctis, Willem Dafoe. The other thing I was asked about is okay, because, you guys are submitting Reddit AMA questions, and I was asked about what is Zalmyra? That I was asked that. Like, what, like, we've seen you post weird GIFs. Like, is that a real thing? And I told them that yes, it's a real thing. Some people are into that. That's how the fandoms work. Okay, they legitimately asked me that because, um, like if you're trying to figure out what the fuck is happening with the fandom, and you happen to have a fan that's like kind of in the weird community and is affiliated with some of these weird affiliate things, I just said, yeah, it's just a thing. I don't know if you know, some of it is a little bit like we're just being silly for the sake of silliness, and so I did explain that it's really that. There's not some weird coded thing that they did accidentally, you know. Uh, so those are some questions I was asked. Um, as far as the actual event, it was great. So we got there and it was really fun. But before I talk about the event, let's talk about the Game Awards, okay? While we got people coming in, let's talk about the Game Awards. So, just real quick, I told my wife before we sat down, I said, here's who I think's going to win everything. And I was really only wrong about one. One award was I wrong about. And that was performance. I honestly thought either Luke Roberts or Brianna was going to win. I was surprised that Melina won a second time. And not that she isn't a fantastic actress. Like, and looking at her performance, the entire game was just her performance, and it was really incredible. Okay, so I don't want to say that she didn't do great. But I really didn't clock that as who was going to win. It was a short performance, and I honestly just thought the entire body of work from Luke Roberts and Brianna was better. And I've said this before. I love Brianna. I think she deserves the world and everything. But I'm not even sure she was the best performance in Rebirth. But I certainly understand why she was sort of the representative of the cast. Okay. That said, everything else, I really expected Astrobot to take game of the year, and I expected it to take game direction. The only real surprise for me was, other than that, I was a little surprised that Wukong won Best Action Game, but not that surprised. Um, the Best RPG category and Best Narrative going to Metaphor. I I very much expected that one, and so when you look at RPG as a category, now don't get me wrong, Rebirth was my game of the year, and I think it was game of the year, and it is technically an RPG. So when I say that I think Metaphor deserved RPG of the year, I know that's a weird thing to say, um, but I think Metaphor Metaphor's RPG elements were very strong, right? And it introduced really good characters and really good narrative and had super tight UI, super tight like systems. I happen to know a lot of the, the one of the things that got to happen is I got to talk to a lot of jurors, like a ton of jurors, and obviously I can only speak for like U.S. jurors, but many of the people that voted for Rebirth for Game of the Year voted for Metaphor for RPG of the Year because a lot of them thought a lot of people thought Rebirth was gonna win Game of the Year. Um, a lot more jurors than I expected, um, but I think Astrobot was just really the darling of reviews. So yeah, Metaphor is great. Okay, like I do think that some of the gameplay is a little bit like it's just a tightening of systems, and I think what it does is less ambitious and more iterative in terms of gameplay, and so I wouldn't give it something like best game direction. Um, I would give it something like best RPG because it's the best game whose gameplay experience relies solely on its RPG mechanics. Whereas I think some like some of Rebirth's best mechanics are action, right? So it does get it like now that games are starting to blend and the lines between everything are blurred, you know, um, it is getting harder and harder to categorize these things. The other thing I wanted to mention is that my issue from the very beginning with Elden Ring getting nominated for Game of the Year as opposed to getting its own sort of thing. I'm so sorry. I will hold. Hi guys, hello. How are you? Okay, what was I saying? Welcome back. So yeah, my issue with Symphony of the Night, no, of my the biggest issue I have with Shadow of the Erdtree getting nominated, DLC getting nominated, is that it became really clear immediately that nobody was going to give it an award for any category. Whereas if the best DLC of the year, possibly the best DLC ever made, had a category for DLC, it would have gotten an award. You know, Astrobot won because reviewers discriminated Rebirth for being too big, which is a joke. Okay, so let's talk about that for a little bit. I wanted Rebirth to sweep too. So I talked to numerous jurors, and I guarantee you there is a huge disconnect between. There's a huge disconnect between what like the jurors and the critics took issue with in Rebirth and what loud people on Twitter did. Okay, so critics did not have an issue with the game length, the side activities, any of that stuff. The number one thing I heard from jurors was that very, very precisely, by the end of Rebirth, many people felt that all of the new elements added were meant only to create doubt about what will be for sure the same plot. Right? So, that is the number one critical complaint from actual jurors. Okay? Now, that could be different. The U.S. is only 30% of the jury. And it's not like I talked to every single juror, but every single juror I did talk to, which there was a pretty pretty solid amount. That was one of their biggest critiques. Is it had more to do with um this idea that there's a bunch of new changes that are only there to fool the player. So um whether that means that moving forward they they have an additional purpose to those things, like something concrete, um or whether they just stop engaging in as much of that. It's hard to say, or if they just do their own thing and just whether or not they get game of the year is up to the fates to decide. Because people change a lot in 3 years. And there's a lot of things that happen overall discourse. That will change aggressively. Um, just from like 2020 to now, for instance, the talking points are very different. We'll get into some of that. So other than that, the Game Awards was awesome. It's always fun to go to the Game Awards. I can't stress enough that it's like it's. I'm not saying it's 100% worth the money because it's expensive, but I had a great time there. I went with good friends. Um, got to hang out with some cool people. Cool people show up that you don't expect. You know, Harrison Ford was there. The musical performances were surreal. Like the Arcane medley was really good, and Snoop Dogg still totally has it. Like, dude totally has it. And so uh that was all really fun, to sort of check out. Yeah. Hold on. Okay. They'll show the R3 trailer reveal name at least during the second anniversary of Ever Crisis. Numera said it during the first anniversary. He sort of said it. I mean, there was. Okay. He said it in a way that I wouldn't hold your breath. Okay. For sure. Okay, but as far as the rest of the TGAs go, Snoop Dogg brought the house down, all that stuff. In terms of game reveals, I thought we had like the best TGA ever. And I can tell you that within the crowd, the things that had the biggest reactions with, I mean, starting off with The Witcher 4 is a really strong way to start, people really like that. And, I think that's probably the thing most people are excited about. Because it's, as much as we really put pressure artistically, people to generate new IPs, most consumers are sellouts, and so they want more of the same. Now Witcher 4 looks really good, so it's way up there for me. And then there were some other announcements that like I'd never expected in a million years. I thought we were done with Okami forever, so I think Okami was really good. Okami looked really good. Excited for Onimusha, whatever that's gonna look like. Those play to nostalgia, and I appreciate that. As far as new stuff goes, I think people love Okami based on the reactions. Yeah, I would say that the biggest reaction overall to in the crowd and then after was Intergalactic, the new Naughty Dog game. And I don't know why I didn't consider this, but the internet is really dumb. And so when I got on the internet, I was like, wait, this wasn't the most hyped thing? And then I remembered that, Grums is on the internet. And so, a lot of the dialogue became something really, really ridiculous about that. Virtua Fighter was also announced, and that was a big one for me. I love Virtua Fighter. Virtua Fighter is so technical. Like, if we got Virtua Fighter and DOA, I'd be like, oh, yes. Yes. But that said, those are all just, IPs brought out of extinction. And that's fun. That's great. I'm a Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth channel. I'm a 7R Trilogy channel. And so, I'm not ragging on that. But I always do hope that enough of the reveals and stuff like that are about, like, pushing the industry forward. Because I think that's the point of award shows, too, right? Or specifically, like, what they call prestige awards, like things like the Oscars and stuff like that, where you're celebrating, things that are kind of innovating the industry and pushing things forward. And I think the award nominees maybe faltered in this, but I think the actual awards succeeded. Okay. Clive and Tekken actually got a huge amount of applause, so that was cool. He's an awful human. I don't know who you were talking about, actually. There. And then, but my personal, like, what was, like, the more I've been watching and thinking about it, my personal, like, favorite, like, kind of reveal, though, was the Ico game, was the new Ueda. Because when it was the slow burn of it, right? It looked like, oh, yeah, Grums is a terrible human. It was like this slow burn of it, right? Like, because it felt at first like really generic. Like, I'm like, what is this? And then I knew who it was from, but I'm like, what is this? But then, as like sort of the walls break open, the head detaches, the darkness is coming in, and you start to realize that this is whatever this is really hard to define and put in a box, you know. Um, Tifa would be the better choice for Tekken 8. Sure, I guess. I don't know. I'm super excited for Clive. And that's not that Tifa wouldn't be great, but it's like you got to remember like the way timing works, right? Like just theoretically, let's say Clive was decided to be in Tekken. It was probably a couple years ago, you know? Like that's just the way that all of this stuff needs to take. And so it's hard to pull somebody away from development of an active title that they're like really deeply in, which they would have been for Rebirth, and let's not to mention like kind of who sort of has Tifa's, branding is going to be Nomura, so he's probably real busy. Okay, so along with like the legacy of Final Fantasy 15 having Noctis and Tekken 7, uh, Clive seemed like the choice that I would have expected more than anything. But maybe by season 3, we'll see. It, like the door is never closed on stuff like that. Yeah, Nomura's not super lenient. Yeah, and there's rumors rolling around about why, and like, remember those are all rumors. But like, if you were to like look at his history of things, you could make speculations that probably weren't like the worst thing, right? Aren't the most off base. Um, but yeah, I had a great time at TGA, and I think it's probably the best TGA yet. Um, there were a lot of ads. There were a lot of game trailers. And to be honest, that is what pays the bills. Okay. Um, like that's why people watch, right? Like you would hope anyways. That's why people watch. Um, Other things about that before we start talking about the event. Wukong. Okay, so the Wukong situation. Um, I heard people in the lobby, just screaming about Wukong, and I know people up front in the audience were apparently a witness to um, sort of the game science dev meltdown. There was no Square Enix stuff in Astro. There's technically one Square Enix thing in Astro now, and that's Gex. But, yeah. That's sort of a anathema. Definitely anomalous, to say the least. So, yeah, when an event reaches 10 years, that's an achievement in itself, too. Yeah. Gex! I know, Gex is great. Gex is great. Wukong won 2 years ago. Yeah, I mean, like, okay, here's what I'll say about Wukong, right? Like, I mean, they sold, Wukong sold 20 million copies. Okay. And so it has the highest amount of people that have played it, right? But there is no human way that those 20 million peoples could have played, let's say, Astrobot, because that only sold 2 million copies. So there are 18 million people that did not play, that absolutely 100,000% for sure did not play. It's probably higher because they don't exactly intersect, right? And also, this is again like proof to me that the jurors need to have played all the games. Like, because I see people on social media, I see content creators like flipping out about this, like Moist Critical and all that stuff are like, I really think Wukong deserved to win. He's chill about it. He's like, okay, I thought it would be Astrobot, but like Shroud stuff like that is saying that like it's Sony shills and stuff like that. I guarantee you, it's just the people that selected Astrobot over Wukong have probably played more games. Okay, because Wukong does not push any real boundaries. It's sort of generic. It's kind of underwhelming. Okay, if it's the only game you played this year and you don't play a lot of games in that genre, you'll be like, this is awesome. Okay. Also, most people didn't play both. And if the people had played both, I don't know really anybody that played both. Like, and I mean like really beat both games. They were like, oh yeah, Astrobot was way worse than Wukong. Like, it's just, that's why you do awards this way. Is the people, those people, we have to play it, yeah. And, Metacritic scores, like, people all, like, I remember talking about Metacritic scores to people, like, going, hey, well, look at the Metascore. That doesn't mean it's the game of the year. I mean, yeah, it kind of does. Almost always it does, right? Yeah, and Metaphor and Final Fantasy cannibalized each other a little bit. A little bit, yeah. A little bit. Also, some of the timing was bad too, because I'm going to be real. If Indiana Jones came out, I mean this, by the way. I'm dead serious about this. If Indiana Jones had come out a month earlier, it'd be in this conversation. Indiana Jones is really good. I know the Metacritic score is not super high on Indiana Jones, but I think it would be more in this. I think it probably would have knocked out one of the titles from Game of the Year. I don't think it would win, but I think it would have changed the conversation significantly. It's kind of insane that not playing all the game isn't a requirement. Being a judge when you can be unfamiliar with most nominees is fucking insane. Yeah. 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 Metaphor, and look, I'm not sure if you were here for this, Ryan, but I think Metaphor deserved every single category that it won. I would say that, putting him head to head with Rebirth probably had better game direction and probably a better shot at game of the, or I think it was more of a game of the year contender. But like, even RPG, all the things that are good about Metaphor are inherently RPG, like character, narrative, UI, systems like that. So like, I do think that the RPG-ness of Metaphor was, the best of this year. So I think it deserved that award. And I think that it definitely deserved narrative. Even if I don't have as many problems as some did with the narrative of Rebirth, for the very purpose that it is a middle part, of a trilogy, I don't see that as being, as competitive with a self-contained narrative like Metaphor. People have brought up Mouthwashing as a narrative competitor, And Mouthwashing should have been nominated because it is one of the best narratives of the year. I'd say it's maybe number 2 or 3 for me. But it was weird to see it lost, you know. But that's okay. That was I also think that's one of those ones where it's like it's sort of, even though it came out within the Criterion selection, so many people were late to the game that it just didn't enter the conversation in time, you know. Welcome in, everybody. How does every voting institution ensure all their voting participants have actually played every game, and how do the TGAs also verify this? It seems like an unsolvable problem. It is. It's an unsolvable problem, but you do generally know, like, so that's why there's this value judgment of, like, who do you trust the most in this situation? Well, people whose job it is to review games are the most likely to have touched every game, right? Um, and I can just tell you, I can't ensure every single one, but I can tell you, like I said, I talked to a lot of the jury, and I have high confidence that the jury and the jury institutions touched every game to a significant degree. Okay. I can only speak for the U.S. jurors, though, right? U.S. is about 30-ish% of the entire jury, which is still, it's the largest single country entry. But, you know, I mean, generally, like, you go look at those, you, like, look on the voting jury list. You go to their sites. You look at their publications. They have a review of every game nominated. Okay? And so when they submit their votes, you can probably at least check to see how good faith the reviews are. Even if you don't agree with them, you can say, hey, they played it, right? So it's not possible to 100% verify, but you can play a law of averages and make a value judgment and say, of the imperfect solutions available, this one will yield the most results. I'd have much preferred mouthwashing win for narrative. You know, my thing with mouthwashing is, sorry about your game, Baby Seal. What? What about it? No, I agree with the choices, Peter. I think they're good. And that's not me just being happy that Wukong didn't win or that Elden Ring didn't win. That's not what it is. I've said this before, I say this a lot. I really think Wukong 2 is gonna bang. It's gonna be really good. Like, they've got the backbone to build something really creative and interesting off of. You know? You put 200 hours into Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth and 150 into Metaphor. Honestly, I'm shocked how much people like Metaphor. It's the characters and the narrative for me. I wanted Rebirth to win game direction too. Yeah, I did too. But I think that it makes sense, you know. Because okay, so what was so well directed about Astrobot is that, I mean, there's literally nothing wrong with Astrobot. Like, there is no, like, it is one of the tightest video game experiences that have ever been made by like a mile. Okay. I think the trouble is that when IGN says, hey, we think Metaphor is the best RPG of the year, the editorial staff is making that value judgment, not just the person that reviewed it for them. Well, like, for instance, like, you know, the GameSpot people, like, I talked to them, and, you know, they all, once the nominees, you know, were selected, the people that didn't review it, review any of the games, all sort of took it upon themselves to try and do the best that they could, to maintain their jury status and play the games, right? They played all the games, right? So even people that didn't interview or, that didn't write a review, like Timur played Metaphor, even though he reviewed, his published review of the year was Rebirth, and he wasn't fond of the ending, and I disagree with him on that, but that's beside the point. I still think that overall, like, there's not a better way to do this. Best score and music results throughout the years usually what make me think that panels haven't touched or at least heard every game. Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody was surprised that Rebirth got music, though. And I talked to some jurors about that too, and a lot of them said something similar to me, which is that they liked individual tracks of other soundtracks maybe a little bit more, but the entire body of work of Rebirth's soundtrack was just too immeasurably good. And so, like, I had somebody say, somebody said to me that the favorite song of the year was in Stellar Blade. It was the guy that sings near the fishing spot in the desert, whatever that Okabe song is. Said that was the song of the year, but that was his favorite, most soulful piece of music. But yeah, last year had no Octopath Path Traveler 2, and I do really like Octopath Traveler 2's music. I think there's probably is a little bit of like AAA favor in some of the music. Yeah. Oh, thank you for the gift sub, Peter. In my heart, Rebirth won it all. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the interview. Let's talk about afterwards, okay? So, needless to say, we went to the Rebirth event afterwards, and it was really fun. We got to meet a lot of the cast. I've met pretty much all the cast already, but there were some new people, like Paul Castro was there, and I hadn't met him yet. Oh, thank you for the sub yourself, Peter. Enjoy ad-free viewing. I personally like Metaphor or Stellar Blade's OSTs, but Rebirth OST is such an insane body of quality work that biases inside it almost has to win. Yeah, I generally agree. Although, like, the more I've listened to Metaphor's OST, the more I realize it really relies on just a couple of tracks, and then the rest is some of it is actually just felt like kind of nondescript. I would say that there's more elements of Metaphor's OST that were disappointing to me than, say, like P5's, but there were some bangers that really surprised me and did things that were really inventive musically, right? So that one's a real hard one for my relationship with Metaphor OST is really strange. Stellar Blade I thought had really consistently good music. It just had a smaller music pool. I really like Okabe though. But I legit don't think Metaphor's music is very good, to be honest. And music is really subjective, right? And so again, that's another thing where with music too, subjective music is rough because not everybody agrees on what kind of things sound good, what kind of motifs sound good. But one thing you can objectively judge is body of work and the amount of effort put into it. And there's always going to be a little bit of and I think this is unfair, a little bit of favor given to hand played instruments in situations like that, which bums me out because I'm more of a synthwave guy, which is why I was the most excited about Intergalactic, is it's got some of the best music ever. Immediately the good track, I really like that retro futurism. I think Tadia Gabriel's really a great actress, and I was super excited to see her right off the bat. But besides that, the event. Okay, so getting to the event, Got to meet Paul Castro. He's really nice. Everybody's really nice there. Got to see some good content creator friends and have good conversations with them. But most of all, I was able to submit some questions and got a little special thank you from Hamaguchi and from Katase. They let me hold the game award, which was really cool. I have a picture of that. I'll probably put it in my video. Very heavy. Game awards are really heavy, and multiple people said you could kill somebody with that. And one Square Enix staff member said that it would be the plot of a really good, like, Law and Order episode. You know, like the murder weapon, some disgruntled, like some game science dev fucking kills Jeff Keighley with with, with an award. Um, so that was fun. Um, and you know, right off the bat, they had merch for sale and they were giving out merch. They were doing fun stuff. It was just a cool time to see people. Like, I got to see John again. John gave me a big hug. John's really excited about the BAFTAs. He hopes that he makes it to the short list. So a lot of you know that John Eric Bentley, the voice of Barrett, has been kind of a little underappreciated at these awards. And so it was good to see him show up on a list for the BAFTAs. But we're not there yet, right? It's not just that he needs to win; he needs to make the cut, right? So they've released the long BAFTA lists, and that how they do that is if you look at the nominees, you're like, oh, these categories are really broad. Well, that's because they have one more trim, right? So once the short lists come out, then we'll find out if he's really on the list. So he's excited to find out if that's the case. I hope he gets it. Um, and there's some intergalactic spoilers on 4chan. If it's real, the game will be great. All right. I'm kind of okay just going into that one blind. I'm sold enough. I don't need to see gameplay. I don't think Naughty Dog's gonna put out a game that doesn't have good gameplay. Um, like, uh, yeah, I'm sold on the premise alone. I really like the world. I don't think there's ever been a trailer where I picked up more subtext in, like, per frame in a game. And I think that was something too that a lot of people kind of missed on casual viewing, is that, like, if you're really looking, there's zeal, there's just a pure amount of, like, dripping. Yeah, and I know I'm a little worried. The only thing that I've seen that's worried me is the themes of the game being about religion. um I as much as I'm not, like, a religious person, and I study religion and I like religion as a topic, um if there's one person I'm, like, a little scared could go the wrong way with that, it might be Neil. But that's sort of an aside. We'll have to wait and see. But okay, I keep getting caught off on Intergalactic. So the event. So just to get to the Q&A, the questions and answers were really good. There was one question that I asked, and I guess I'll pull that up. That got recorded. I was able to ask other questions too, but this one was actually recorded. Let's see. Okay. Don't get mad at me about this question. Okay. There's a scene at the
Okay.
end of intermission where Zack enters Aerith's church and doesn't find her there, ending as a sort of cliffhanger for the next part.
Okay. I know you guys can't hear that well. Okay. All right. So let's come here. Mm. Oops. Yeah, David recorded it, which is fine.
There's a scene at the end of intermission where Zack enters Aerith's church and doesn't find her there, ending as a sort of cliffhanger for the next part. That scene implies that he hasn't met Aerith yet, but in every scene in Rebirth, he is taking care of her. Why the difference? Was that scene scrapped? How much should we keep that scene in mind moving forward?
Yeah, Chad was a little.
So it isn't exactly that scene was scrapped per se, but when we approached Remake and Rebirth and how to go about telling this story, I know that a lot of you may notice that within the sort of inner workings or background of the game, we have the sort of essence of the multiple worlds and like a parallel universe, as many of our fans like to mention it. And sort of by mixing these elements, our sort of intention was to really provoke this type of discussion and curiosity into what could possibly be happening. Are these worlds the same or different, and the timeline of it all. And so Zack and Eric's relationship and those scenes in itself is also a part of it. So your question is almost like, oh, this is as we intended. He's like, oh, this is really a fan event. He's like, oh, we don't even know what the next question's going to be.
Okay, yeah. So a little bit cut out of this was that he, and I do have the raw audio, and I have sent it to Turk, but he's so the takeaway from here is, look, I know all of us are like, okay, parallel worlds, timelines, that kind of stuff. It is interesting how aggressively he confirms that is at play, right? That has not actually been this aggressively confirmed before in anything. Him saying, oh, well, it could just be an alt timeline, or saying like, hey, through multiverse it's all possible. That is sort of the takeaway, and it is him kind of ducking the question, right, a little bit. But it does at least give us an answer. It's a political answer, but you could tell he was a little thrown off by the question. So, and then after this, there were some other questions, but the most standout question after this, and I'm sure somebody got it and it'll come out, but there was a ZACK fan in the audience, and when I say ZACK fan, I think that's underselling it. Like this woman was decked in head to toe in like a soldier outfit, and then she had like multiple ZACK play arts strapped to her body. Like she was like the Zackest stan ever. And she asked a question. She said, this is from all the ZACK fans in Europe, in America. All of us were so happy that Zack had a renewed role in Rebirth, and we love getting to play as Zack and Cloud, and we just want you to know. And then right then the question's interrupted by Caleb Pierce, who's there, the actor for Zack, who runs over and comes and hugs her and says, I love this question. Yes. Caleb's a absolute a gem of a human being. And so she finishes her question. It's like, we just want you to know that we really hope Zack gets a better fate in part 3 than he got in the original.
And we hope that he has a bigger role in the future of the series. Can you tell me anything about his role in part 3? And Hamaguchi's answer, I shit you not, was, I can't talk much about part 3 yet, but I have a feeling you're going to be very happy. So that was the biggest reveal. Everybody in the audience was really shocked about that. Um, and I mean, it doesn't seem that shocking to me. Like, it seems like, yeah, I mean, we're probably going to get more ZACK. But it was like having a better fate was the one that was really, because most people are like, oh, ZACK's just going to be relegated to, he's going to save the planet from within and then die a hero's death again. You know? That's the bigger role that most people think he's going to play. Like, oh, I knew it. Like, because I posted on Twitter, like, oh, you know, they said ZACK's going to have a much bigger role. But that isn't quite what was said, right? And yeah, he's going to have a bigger role. But his role might be a little bit less. Yeah. Yeah. You know. And look, this could still be as simple as his fate is better because we know he's more at peace with what he's done, and then he just fades away into whatever. But it does challenge this sort of like, oh, he's just going to be relegated to this like afterlife type experience where we get to play as him in the afterlife. It does seem to be something a little bit more concrete. And I'll tell you what, I'm not the biggest ZACK fan. I'm not strapping play arts to my, you know, outfit or anything like that. But at this point, I don't know which thing I'd really like more. Like, the idea of him being just like this live stream warrior. I understand that people are afraid that if he has a different role, it threatens sacred relationships. And I kind of I feel the same way. You know, I don't want ZACK to be the center piece of this game. I don't want his struggle to overtake Cloud's. Um, but then again, you know, the cheapest thing they can do is actually maybe like a Tita situation. You know, um, have my overall FF7 RE theories changed much? They were kind of all. I can't really get into much. This is the only thing I can kind of talk about is this particular question and answer. But I can tell you that the whole experience has kind of changed what I think is gonna happen. And I'm waiting on word back on what I can talk about and whatnot. But like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not so certain that this is just like, you know, he's guiding the whispers to defeat the, you know, darkness of Sephiroth on the second indoor front, you know. Um I actually think that that ZACK and Cloud, if they are equal in attention, that would be fine too. Um, the setup for ZACK to have a happier ending, I feel, is the only thing you can do with the current setup. I haven't budged on that since part one. I I know, I know, Ryan. Um, you know, I think with Renaissance Self, like, you know, it's one of those things. It's open to interpretation for people what they value about the story, and um, for me, 50-50ing it
does seem like whatever they do for Zack, it needs to be as interesting as Cloud's character progression and arc. And and so whatever that is something that has never been done with Zack. Because Zack's character is so opaque that I don't really see, like, the depth would need to be new, interesting, and like mold breaking for me to feel like it was worth it for me. Because, you know, what is Final Fantasy VII? Like, the crux of Final Fantasy VII is really Cloud's, like, the live stream sequence is still the most important thing. Like, Cloud finding himself, like, the identity issues are like the crux of Final Fantasy VII. Not just for me, but for the devs too, right? So, like, that's the story, right? A lot of people only made it to Aerith's death, but like the thing that I think made Final Fantasy VII stand out for me was the live stream sequence. And so, like, that was the thing that made it, like, took it from being a craft to an art, right? And so, if they can still nail that, and then whatever Zack's arc is equally valuable and isn't just fan service, isn't just like, I like that kind of character more, I want to see more of that character. Like, I don't consider that to be like a particularly artistic move, you know, and I don't see that as being like justification for the series, you know, personally. But if what Zack goes through, what his character arc is something inventive and original, and really sheds a new kind of interesting light on a character that has otherwise just been, you know, a himbo trope, then I'd be incredibly impressed, you know? Yeah, 50-50. Yeah, and also I think so much of the game's focus, of Rebirth's focus too, is getting a lot of. Oh, I see. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. A lot of Rebirth's focus. I mean, like, it feels like the entire setup of the last two chapters is for the live stream sequence, and to like, forego all that setup just to I don't know, give Zack 50-50 time does seem like maybe a tactical error. And it would just be one of those things where it's like, I really like Zack and I want to see more of him. Here you go. You know? To me, the live stream sequence is the storehouse consciousness, and Zack and Aerith stream. Date worlds are just collective unconscious from Carl Jung in the live stream. I mean, yeah, I think collective unconscious as a as as like a concept is just a way to describe the live stream, but Yogacara is a way to, like, you know, sort of conceptualize that these people's consciousness, dreams, fears, all this stuff has a, like, manifesting power on the live stream, and then we can see that the live stream itself has, like, a significant amount of influence on the real world. So, yeah.
Let's dance, asshole.
Sure. Hey, subtext. Yes. So what you missed, subtext, is I talked about a lot of stuff, but one of the biggest bombshells that we had there was a question asked about Zack during the Q&A, the public Q&A, and I'm allowed to talk about anything that happened at the public Q&A. And this Zack fan who was like a wallpaper for Zack, and she's a sweetheart, absolutely one of the best people there. I love her dearly. She during the Q&A stood up and said, you know, I'm representing Zack fans from America and Europe. We love Zack, and we were so happy that Zack had more of a role in Rebirth, but we are begging you, please let him have a better fate in part 3. and let us let him have a bigger role. And during the question, Caleb Pierce, who voices Zach, interrupted the question, said, "I love this question," then ran over and hugged this woman, and it was fantastic. It was a great thing. And to that, publicly, Hamaguchi replied, "I can't talk much about part 3, but I have a feeling you're going to be very happy." So it was a lot more than just bigger role, better fate, was something that she said. Now, how well that was translated, who knows? And so I mean, there's a chance that he's just excited. So another thing too is, one of the things that Hamaguchi did, very publicly say, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get the Game of the Year award. But he wasn't, a crybaby about it. He was just like, they said, but what this is going to do for me is motivate me to make part 3 even better, and there was conversation about what, he did have a conversation like, what would you do different? What are things that would happen? What's needed, to change this? And I think one of the things that made me feel good is that he did get a little bit of pushback from public criticisms. One of them is like, somebody literally said, don't listen to people about the platinum. Platinums are supposed to be hard. And he said, thank you, I will listen to that. So I don't know if that, I will consider that, right? So he's probably made up his mind, but it's good that there are people that he's taking some kind of feedback that, like, hey, don't overreact to every piece of feedback, yeah, the Rebirth Platinum was brutal. It's my favorite Platinum ever. I hope part 3's Platinum is even harder. Yeah, and everybody really likes him too. That's another thing. He is an absolute sweetheart. He's kind of the darling of the studio now. He's young. He's really personable. What sticks in my memory the most? Stuff I can't talk about yet, but that I will be able to talk about at some point. But like in terms of things that I can talk about, the ZACK question really stood out. The actual event itself was fun too. Like, it's just you get John Eric Bentley is like the cast is just drips with charisma. Like you can really feel like there's nobody that doesn't like love what they do. I mean, Paul Castro was there, and he got to see somebody dressed as Chadley. We got to see Chocobo Billy. Somebody was dressed as Chocobo Billy. I mean, somebody was also dressed as Chadley. And there was a lot of there's just a lot of good vibes there. Let's see who Vic Chow was there. Vic Chow is probably one of the most like gracious and humble humans on the planet. Also, probably of everybody on the cast, the one that has the like largest body of work, because he does do plenty of anime. He does plenty of games. He does some live action stuff too, but mostly what he does is he does live action dubs. So by like almost every Chinese, Korean, or Japanese live action show that is dubbed has Vic Chow's voice in it. Like, the dude is working 12 hours a day, right? But just a super genuine, nice guy. And then talking to the Square Enix team, they worked really hard. All the PR and media people worked really hard. It's a hard job. It's a really hard job. And you could kind of see all the work they put in, and to see, kind of have a wrap-up event for a game like this is really good.
So that, you know, like just the vibes stood out a lot. Um, yeah, yeah, that would be my best. Onimusha is a big deal, Kino Tabs. Um, what sticks out from TGA though, for me is still um, just like they're like I think the reactions to some of the trailers were really like they were kind of cathartic because it's so loud in there all the time. And then so they turn up the music really loud so you can't hear it, but you can still hear it, right? But there were some that it was like there would be a little bit of silence in the trailer and you would just hear you couldn't hear a pin drop. And then you would hear explosive audience response. It was like I've never really had an audience response quite heard that quite like that. And I think the biggest response from the audience was Intergalactic had such thunderous applause at the end. And it was really like it was just and Sleep Easy was there too with me. He was Sleep Easy lost his mind over literally everything. He probably lost his mind the most over the Virtua Fighter thing, and so that was fun for me too, just to watch Sleep Easy go fucking insane. Um, Seeing Jeff become emotional with Clover's reveal was a cool one too. Yeah, yeah. Okami, yeah, yeah. OG's ate really well, right? So um, the people that really like Onimusha, Okami, those were really like, no way, I can't believe we're ever getting a game like that. Onimusha, okay, so I love Onimusha. Um, I have weird feelings about it coming out. I kind of need to see it, you know. I kind of need to see what it looks like. Uh, I really want it to feel like an arcade game. You know, like that's like right. So okay, how was react? Oh, that was okay. So the loudest guy in the theater over the fucking Pac-Man thing was me. Cause like, all right. So anybody that follows me on Twitter knows like I got weirdly attacked by a community that I didn't even know existed, which was fucking Pac-Man stands. Right? Like there are people with Pac-Man profile pictures that were like so mad that I was excited for the secret level episode about Pac-Man because it completely changes the concept and construct of Pac-Man um and like and in this super cool like heavy metal way. And it's only a 12-minute episode because that's always what secret level was going to be like. It was going to be like Love Death Robots. Like that's the shit that this was always going to be. And I fucking loved it. I love the episode. I love the concept. And then when we get in the theater, they reveal a new Pac-Man game and it's based on that concept. It's like a shadowy, dark, fucked up version of Pac-Man. And I won't spoil the premise for you because it's free on Amazon Prime. You could just go watch it. It's 12 minutes. It's uh the the swordsman is voiced by Alex Lee, you know, Sonon, and it's good. And so they released a game that was based on the same premise, and I was losing my shit in the theater. Sleep Easy was with me going, "Yeah, it's your thing." And then he's the only other person that knew why I was so fucking happy. And everybody else was like, "Who's this insane person?"
Yeah. Yeah, very 7th gen Pac-Man. Ueda will be a PS7 game. I know it's a ways out. What did you think of the new Elden Ring? I immediately saw that it was some kind of like not Elden Ring. Like as soon as everybody I like um as soon as he said it was like some kind of co-op thing, I was like, okay, this is not real Elden Ring. But I did think it was funny that he said he laughed and then said he chuckled to himself. He's like, here's a new standalone game. And he chuckled to himself because he was like aware of the criticism about DLC. All right. And then, so, okay. So for the people that don't know what that is, it's like you have static characters. It's more of a co-op roguelite, not Rouge Light. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, please, all of the world, please learn how to spell rogue. Rogue, not Rouge, light. This is not the Moulin Rouge. This is roguelite. Yeah, calm before stormer. A lot of people misspell it exactly like that. Yeah, like a rogue. Not a burlesque show. No criticisms. Yeah, and see is it a roguelite or roguelike? Both are apparently fucking fine. Just like drunk or drank. Or fucking gaslighted and gaslit. Both of those are apparently. We could use some Moulin Rouge likes though. Even after Joker 2, that was a Moulin Rouge light. But like in terms of game awards, let's see. uh, I mean, there are a lot of people on Twitter saying this shit's like fucking rigged, right? There's no way that mid-ass Wukong could have possibly lost to one of the best designed games in human history. Anyways, um, let's see. Uh, Split Fiction, um, looks really good too. Uh,
We sure cause a lot of explosions.
Now, okay. This looks great. But here's something I'm going to say about the studio. Not Dreamcast Kai. I love Dreamcast Kai. I know he's kind of a troll, but he's one of the best people in the world. He would give you the shirt off of his back. Anybody that really knows that dude, that guy will like if you like I once posted vaguely that I was like kind of I was having a rough time with content and people fucking with me. And he sent me he got off of a bike ride that he was in the middle of to send me a video message. Dude's a super nice guy. Like don't like remember like the parasocialness of it all, okay? Dreamcast guy knows how to upset people with with thumbnail titles, and he's upset Xbox people a lot and all sorts of stuff. The dude is a really nice guy. All right. So if you're like, hey, I'm on the fence of whether or not to give that guy another try, I would say give him another try. If not, you know, if you've given him enough try, he's just not for you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But okay. Here's the thing about this studio. Okay, I actually do not think they're very good at trailers. Okay? Um the trailers feel a little bit too like I don't know, like uh Gen 2 Marvel trailers, you know? But like cuz I saw the It's Take Two trailers a lot and I just could not. I was like, "No. I don't want this." Right? Even when I got nominated for Game of the Year, I'm like, "I still don't want this." I finally caved and you're like, "Oh shit, this game is so good." So, I'm excited for Split Fiction based on the premise and the studio, but I do really think they gotta change the way they do their trailers a little bit, personally.
We sure cause a lot of explosions.
Like, the editing is so... FF7 Rebirth not winning Game of the Year was BS. Astrobot was good, but comparing the two games is not even possible. The fact Hamaguchi and his team pour so much love in Rebirth just to get shunned is tragic. I hear you. I do.
Because I'm about to show you
it was my personal Game of the Year.
Let me tell you this.
There's a lot to consider, you know, with this. I'll just kind of quiet this a little bit. Let it play in the background. There's a lot of reasons why I think the studio picked Astro. You know, the jury picked Astrobot overall. One, none of the votes were split, right? If you were going to choose Astrobot, you were going to choose Astrobot. If you were going to choose an RPG, you were going to either choose Rebirth or you were going to choose, you know, Metaphor, right? And so it was a little rough, okay? And then if you live in China, you know, you chose Wukong, right? Because what happens to you if they don't, right? You don't get to review games anymore. So there's that. There's also, this is a really rough year for the games industry. And a lot of people really like the story of Astrobot. And you're like, okay, well, wait. It's a Sony first-party title. Sure. But there's this really strange line that comes between, like, publisher and developer. This is a Sony-published thing. But the developer itself, even though it's a first-party owned developer, was a team of 30 people. And every single element of Astrobot was perfect, right? So from like how does the industry need to sort of address things like crunch and you know, impossible dev cycles and like huge risks on ROI, you know, the fact that Astrobot sort of spits in the face of a lot of those problems with, you know, really tight cycles, to make a game that has no flaws, really. Like, even though, like, in my opinion, like the overall net experience of Rebirth was a better experience than Astrobot, I can easily say that Rebirth has more flaws. Okay, you know, so 65 people in Team Asobi now. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I mean, we're looking at like how long was, yeah, how much Sony IP there is that is dormant. Yeah, a lot of, yeah. So 65. Okay, I would say that probably doesn't like necessarily invalidate the point, right? Right. if it were 99, the point would still stand. 65 is a low number. All right. And so it doesn't really have a lot of faults. So I do think that like if there were one game that deserved it other than Rebirth, I would have said Astrobot. You know, and I understand, like, hey, how could you possibly say that this 150 plus hour experience I had that was wall to wall fun for me even compares, you know, to a 25 hour, 35-hour platformer. And I understand, but like within the scope, I mean, that was a flawless game, you know? It really was. And I also think that the team just has a good story. You know, like they do care, they do love. One of the things that was interesting too that they said that did kind of irritate me a little bit is that they said, you know, many studios offered up their IPs for free to be a part of this project. You know, that felt like a little bit of a jab because, you know, I'm sure some people maybe caught like there was maybe a budgetary concern, you know. Less ambitious. Okay. So, in terms of game length, I would say yes. In terms of like ambition, I'm not so sure. I feel like once you get to the end of Astrobot, it does things that I've never seen any platform do ever. Like it does things with, and its use of DualSense is really unique, interesting, and like I yeah, when I hear like it's a generic platformer, I like that's when I know. And you didn't say that, to be clear. Nobody said that in chat. Um, but I've seen a lot of Wukong people say, "Oh, it's a generic platformer." I know they haven't played it, and I don't want to spoil for you where it gets super crazy. But it's about halfway through where you're like, "This is doing shit no platformer's ever done." You know, and that's why. Oh my god, that's when I like. There was a point when I'm like, "Oh, R.I.P." You know. Yeah, the framing of ambitious right now is currently around AAA. Let's say how much money you spend and how large the scope is equals best game, and we got to break that. I agree, and I think that's part of the value of selecting Astrobot. You know, even dude, it for me is way better than Mario Odyssey. Kino Tubs. I would have said way worse first half, but it does some stuff. Yeah, Chained Echoes was made by one guy. Balatro is it's a really fun, addictive game. One guy, you know. I also think the Astrobot team was really like how they handled talking about Mario and Nintendo was pretty classy, you know. I would have liked Astrobot more if I was my son's age. Absolutely, you know. Yeah. Yeah. And to say kids aren't a valid audience, you know, obviously they are. And we do have to think about stuff like that. And I would rather promote Astrobot for kids than the gotcha nonsense that is dominating the youth right now. You know? And look, like if you have as much money as the Hoyoverse, you know, games like ZZZ, Wu and Genshin, like is as much money as they have. Those are good games. They have good narrative experiences. They're really high quality. Um, but man, there's like this carnivorous element to them. You know, Animal Well was one guy too. That is, I felt Animal Well from a nomination standpoint was a little underrepresented. I was kind of surprised, you know, by that. I do know some people don't like Donkey, and that was part of it. Okay, Dispatch. Um, Dispatch actually looks good to me. It has a real weird cast. Um, and yes, everybody in the fucking audience too was like really side-eyeing the amount of like chemistry that it seemed like Laura Bailey and Aaron Paul had. And then and I was like, anybody else clock that on the internet? And yes, they clocked it, and people are real mad about it. Yeah, this is Laura and Aaron's game. I actually think this looks good. You know? Yeah, Laura's got a husband, yeah. But they're just acting. It's probably fine. You know? Yeah, they were doing it for their character. Yeah, totally. Totally. Like their proximity to each other's face was totally just acting. I enjoy the way that A is a cape. It's clever without having to intentionally misspell something per se. I love it. You're still hoping part 3 pulls a Return of the King? Me too. It's really got an uphill battle. Okay, um and because look, you've got like they've got sales quotas to make. Um it's not just that, like, because look, I think they really got the message. I really think they got the message that the thing that lost them Game of the Year had nothing to do with Blow, right? It had nothing to do with content. It had to do with the last 2 chapters. And people were really, I think that the fans, like on the internet, were more complaining about things like bloat and things like um you know uh deviations from the original. But on the critic side, it's almost the opposite. It's like the critics are really, we want innovation. We want to feel like this is more than a ruse to keep people engaged. Like, they do not like Katase's answer that this is, well, we want fans of the old to feel like there might be something exciting. Like, that's why we're going crazy. Right? They do not like that answer. That is not what most of the jurors are really feeling here, you know? Um, so the jurors are feeling like, hey, we would rather you actually commit to the meta and the deviation. And so they've got a choice to make, right? And I'm sure that they probably already have made a decision as to what direction they were going. But I think after this event, um, if for Hamaguchi, that was his big goal. He's like, I want to work harder, make something that will win next time. I want part 3 to win Game of the Year. Like, that was more important to him than sales, right? And I don't know, like, because this is a very big, expensive 10-year project, right? And so do they levy Game of the Year versus sales? What's the right thing for them? And that's a tough question to answer for a corporation, right? As an artist, I would just want to confidently tell the story I always set out to tell and make the best product I can possibly, and the story and the scenario, all that stuff, even though it's ultimately designed by Nojima, pushback is going to change that. So I don't know. I don't know what they've ultimately selected to do. But I wonder if it's going to be different now, Probably not. And you're always going to get a different answer. The one thing too is that I noticed is Kitase was visibly grimacing at some of Hamaguchi's answers during the Q&A. And I think it's just like they have very different roles in the company, and you have to remember that. Like, Kitase is the brand manager, right? And so he's always going to protect the brand. Um, you know, Feedback revisions like this concern me. It does me too. Like I'm always concerned, but I was very concerned when he had a feedback revision to platinum difficulty. You know, like that's not good. Yeah, they have to do more than stick the landing. Just because it just needs to justify all the choices they've made up to this point narratively, it's a near impossible task. They've got to do that and cater to people that are absolutely convinced that everything, that this is a true, complete remake, and not any variant of an adaptation, or that there's no meta elements that consider the future, it's all very tough, and again, I can't really talk about what I think is going to happen now based on my questions, but what I will say is that the highlights surrounded agency moving forward, and it does seem like they have some kind of plan with agency and how that all involved in as far as like what to look at. I would look at Nojima's comments specifically about Yogakara being something that's very kind of indicative of their direction moving forward, based on my I mean, and there's always a chance when you do something like that instead of making making everybody happy, you make nobody happy, right? Like that's the big fear if, like, say player choice were to, I'm not saying this is what happened or anything, but let's say there were multiple endings. Let's say that there were multiple resolutions and only one of them linked up with Advent Children. Will that make everybody happy because they each get their desired ending? Or will the very existence of alternate ending decrease the significance enough that nobody's happy? And it kind of depends on what your values are, what you value in art, right? And for some people, it's spite at this point. In old fandoms, it's just that they don't want the other side to win, right? And so that is that is part of it, but that's not all of it. I think a lot of people want to feel like the story's been conclusively told and don't want whatever they decide, however they decide to wrap up the 7R trilogy, they want that to feel like it isn't degraded by this narrative possibility of choice. So there's a lot to that. For part 3 in particular, there was something kind of magical about the aspect of player choice being significantly reduced after the live stream sequence, right? It was like this idea that agency returns to Cloud, even though there are technically player choice elements after the live stream sequence, that factor in. They're minimal, and so the idea there is that Claude becomes his own person, right? He's his own agent, right? It's a way of humanizing the character and disconnecting him from the player's voice, right? So that played really well, for some of the deeper analysts, and so taking Rebirth as a or 7R having some kind of multiple endings element to it does take away from that, right? You know, so I can see those criticisms. However, it's one of those things that's impossible to know until it's in front of you. It's impossible to know if they nail this or not until we see them. There are ways that multiple endings, I think, have worked narratively in the favor of things, but you know, I think the only way multiple endings works, in my opinion, in a scenario like this, is something more like Nier, right? But even then, it's like that's so much to put into a game. So in terms of, and you know, like there was interpretive element, like even the OG had a fairly open-ended ending. You know, like Kitase thought that the world ended, that humanity was wiped out. That he thought that was the ending. You know, and he may or may not have been asked about that recently. You know, it worked for Nier, won't work for FF7. I mean, like, I don't think there's anything Nier's ending structure works for exactly like, other than Nier or Drakengard. But the idea of having a new game plus ending, you know, like an additional ending, sort of kind of works ish, you know. How dumb is my theory that the final fight of Rebirth was remake Cloud with the OG party? Not dumb. I don't think multiple endings prevents a meaningful conclusion to the trilogy, since interpretation is ambiguous as an experience from the OG. Can a meaningful ending include fan pandering, i.e. shipping? See, I mean, like, that's the thing. It's like, really, Katase was joking when he said that, trying to stop the interviewer from asking more questions about FF7 projects. Okay, I have more to say on that, Tony Frank. Okay, so Katase is very sarcastic. But yeah, I can't talk about what he said yet, so I don't want to get myself in trouble. So let's just put a pin in that, Tony Frank. I just want them to end the ship war. I just can't take it anymore. Yeah. I mean, I guess. Ten-2 logic out of this. I just feel like Cloud's identity resolution could stay the same regardless of endings, but I can't imagine how some ending scenarios would take away from it. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Ars. What about 10.2.5? I don't see them ever ending the ship war. Too profitable. The ship war is the worst thing about the fandom. I don't know, man. Yeah, I mean, the war is bad about it. Like, shipping is fine, you know, and there are plenty of good shippers. Most of us ship to some degree. Like, we have our idea. And a lot of it is that, like, our idea of who Cloud ends up with has more to do with how we think the story is unfolding, right? But that said, like, I do really suggest people try and hold space for other interpretations and, like, try and live in it a little bit and see, like, how it feels to you. Because what that'll help you do is be like, oh, that's a human being and I can treat them well, right? Did the devs confirm Zelmira? So I talked about this for a while earlier in the stream subtext, and I'm sorry you didn't get a notification. But they did ask me, like, why is that a question? Why? Like, I got asked some questions too. I got asked about Willem Dafoe and fucking Zelmyra because they're like, why is that a thing that I get talked to about all the time? Why is that in the like? Because they were getting ready for the Reddit thing because those questions were, you know, they were. So that's another thing. Fucking the Reddit thread. Like, they were fully aware of why people were upvoting and downvoting and going, oh man, this is so dumb. So they know, you know, they know that this is a thing. You know, so the shippers did like uh raid Reddit and try and upvote and downvote certain questions, blah blah blah. Um but they were looking at Reddit questions. They saw Zelmyra ones, and they're like, "We've seen you make posts about Zelmyra before on Twitter. Can you tell us what the fuck this shit is?" And they didn't use bad language, but I did. Um, what will we get aside from the PC release to tide us over for part 3? I wonder. Yeah, I know. Ever Crisis stuff. Yeah, shippers were all over the usual rabid suspects. Yeah, I mean there are rabid shippers in the space, and they do like you know the thing is like not like most shippers aren't rabid. Most are totally fine on every side, you know, and it sucks, but there are a few that really make content creators feel uncomfortable and unsafe in spaces. Like that was something that got brought up, you know, a lot is how unsafe a lot of that conversation makes the developers feel, you know, and yeah, it's not, and you know, I can say it's on all sides. On all sides, there are just being a rabbit shipper in general is probably not really going to make people, you know, have comfort. If they've seen that, they've definitely seen me having choice words about the ending. Oh, of course they have. Yeah, of course they've seen Nice Guy Prince. Of course they've seen what your takes are. But for the most part, uh, it's kind of a success story for Night Sky Prince. He's really he's he's done a lot to get thrown in the blanket hater category this year. A lot more people are feel like they can safely be Night Sky Prince fans again. I was never not a Night Sky Prince fan though. Shipping was the number one reason some invited guests backed out or delayed interviews with me this semester. Yeah, it actually makes doing this hard. Like the number one thing that like delays guests from being on is like they'll go, you know, someone will be like, "Who else have you had on?" They'll look through and like, "I don't want any part of that." You know? Yeah. Um they do so subtext brings up in Twitch something that's interesting, and it's true. They actually did um they have on multiple occasions actually said they expected negative responses from the ending. Um what I'm not sure they totally expected was that there would be so many people that were hopeful that um the new meta stuff wouldn't come across like so intentionally confusing, right? A lot of the criticisms that came out sort of from like again Game of the Year jury members was that the point of the scene was to convince a bunch of people that this game was more than a remake when it wasn't. and that feels like a very disingenuous. And so most of the voting jury had that kind of criticism of the ending, and that was the thing that kind of pushed it out for a lot of people, more than anything else, more than bloat. Because from a video game standpoint, video game critics generally liked how video gamey this video game was. And over the years, the fandom, particularly the loud fandom, has attracted a lot of non-gamers. Okay, and so you have a lot of people that look at this from a shoujo perspective, and that's fine. That is an absolutely fine way. But those people are very online, and those people like generate this perspective of the game that is not really reflected in by gamers, or by critics, right? Because video game critics are generally video game players, and there's a little bit of an overlap with shoujo fans, but not that much, right? Whereas we have a lot of people sort of just from the shoujo sphere who got interested in elements of Final Fantasy VII's plot that are very loud on Twitter, and other social media platforms. But even when those people were catered to, it didn't sell the game very well. Doing the same open world activities in every zone is bloat. Review group. About critic responses, because you can't and remake the way you do if it only feels like a marketing ploy. I don't think Remake's Fate theme was that, but Rebirth's ending made it feel like that. Exactly. How do you feel about the TGAs and Rebirth's performance there? It feels like pretty right to me. Like it got snubbed a little, but I love the show overall. I agree. If there were one award I wanted Rebirth to win, I think it may have deserved, but I understand it was real neck and neck, like 51-49. It was game direction. Personally. But, again, there's a lot of context to why people choose what they choose, why jurors choose what they choose. I think Metaphor split the vote a little bit for Game of the Year. Yeah, probably for game direction too. Although I don't think Metaphor had like particularly groundbreaking game direction. But what it did have was just fantastic, RPG elements, like great UI, great systems, good narrative, great characters. I thought direction would be the one thing Elden Ring snagged. I did not clock Astrobot winning that. Yeah, I think FF7 is a bit impenetrable for non-fans as well. That's absolutely true, And they're aware of that, by the way. They're doing things to make the games more accessible. And I think by part 3, it sounds like it'll be really easy to just rush through the first parts to familiarize yourself. They did some quality of life updates that were really interesting, for that. So, you know. Can you talk a bit about Intergalactic, genuinely on your deeper thoughts? I know I'm an ND nerd. Yeah, so I did, I talked a little bit about it, but I that was my game of show. Uh, I only have a little bit of trepidation now because I know that one of the core themes is religion, and if there's one dude I don't kind of want talking about religion right now, it's Neil Druckmann. Um, and it's not because I think he's going to come across as like a snobby or atheism guy, but it's just because like I'm really worried about his yeah. Um, uh, his messaging has never been overt. I will say that Naughty Dog is not like really like nail on the head. He's religious critique is kind of tried at this point. There's that okay, like in JRP, like every JRPG has that. There's a lot to say on that. There is specifically that occupied West Bank upbringing makes me very uncomfortable, right? And I'm not sure. Like it's unfair. It's unfair to just assume that everything that he said up to this point and the up is going to make him be a little bit unsubtle about the situation in the West Bank. I am really worried about the way that that is going to come into play, right? Like, yeah, Joshi Poo, it's really so. What this has to do is has to do with Palestine, okay, and Zionism. So I have some concerns about some of his thoughts on that, and I just I don't I don't think he's going to be overt. You know, I still have faith that he's probably consulting a lot of people. Um, and he's when he's constructing the story, and what my hope is that he's not um, really yeah. I'm not going to say much more on this just because I don't have the bandwidth right now to talk about it. Um, but beyond that, everything about it was my favorite trailer, right? Visually, I really liked just the way that it looked. I love the Ripley vibes. I love Toddy Gabriel. Um, I thought it was insane to come on the internet and find out that people were like complaining about her looks. Like Toddy Gabriel. That felt insane to me. Um and like yeah, that felt insane to me. But overall, I think what I liked about it is from the like especially in like the experience of being in this audience response, right? Like the whole theater goes quiet and we like I don't know what projector they use at the fucking gaming rooms, but it's so good. It is so good. So the game looked so good right off the bat. Josh, who was with us, clocked that it was Naughty Dog right off the bat, based on like the engine. You could tell there was like that Naughty Dog engine. But like the visuals were really stunning right off the bat, but the references were so immediate and so quick. Like the framing of the first shot um was so good, like seeing the weird like alternate language, the Empyrean thing, like immediately like just the references per second were so quick that like I like by the time that we saw a visual shot, I kind of got the opening premises that we were in a alternate 1986 with its own unique world system. Throw in the immediate anime vibes, like having the 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 anime that was on the screen looked really good, right? And it looked like a uniquely animated thing that was really good. Seeing that watched, seeing all the Akira references right off the bat, then seeing that like this is going to be like this narratively driven thing that involves getting this group of people. I immediately clocked Kumail Nanjiani's face, and I was like, oh fuck, this is gonna have a cast. you know, and then we got to see all the cast. Die! You missed all the hot gossip, but on YouTube you're going to be able to replay it. I loved the product placement. I loved it because it made me feel like, okay, the way that this is going to be an alternate universe kind of story is going to be really interesting. Like a lot of, like, there's going to be kind of like a really unique blends of things that we understand and things we don't. You know, like having branding in an AU was the most interesting part. I was really happy to see like the Walkman reference, the Porsche reference, right? And I have a feeling like it was intentional. Like this is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. And so I love that shit for some reason. Like it really made me like it's cultural. Yeah, it's like it's not like Porsche is trying to sell cars to gamers. It's like more storytelling driven. Right, exactly. Also, in terms of like cost subsidization, I think product placement in terms of like industry, I would rather see product placement than gotcha or DLC. Like in a really rough way, it's like a rough industry where games cost a ton. Subsidizing costs, I would way rather see a fucking cup of ramen noodles, you know, than than outfits that you pay $20 for, you know, or like the Ubisoft thing where like there's this rotating store, that you can buy money to get new things as they come. Like that shit is way worse, you know. So by all means, get Sony, to put a Walkman in there and put Porsche in there, for sure. Like connected to ours, but an offshoot. Yeah, and yeah, go get some Ignis flavored cup noodles, Ty. Also, I'll respond to your message as soon as I have more information about that, Ty. No, but I will get back to you on it. I'm still checking stuff. Okay, before you leave. One of the oldest companies in the U.S. has been for 300 years. It's really strange that some products we recognize will still exist centuries from now, well beyond us bodily. That is actually scary. That makes me uncomfortable to think about ours. So, it felt like the music too. It's my favorite genre of music. Okay, I love that music, and then choosing a great track to listen to, it just, I mean, everything about it screamed like so cool. Like it was just cool. Yeah, Intergalactic. Yeah. Intergalactic looked super cool to me. And then the little bit of combat we got, people like that's not gameplay. It's enough for me to be like, okay, that's the kind of action we're gonna get. We're gonna get like a weapon-based, retrofuturism, and we're gonna fight these robots. And the robot does look like something from Jak and Daxter, a little bit, but like dark and cool. Yeah, and they said that they loved Elden Ring, but they were more talking about minimalist storytelling, and I like that. I don't think it's going to be a Souls-like. I don't think it's going to be, and I certainly don't think it's going to be like Returnal. Yeah, it just looks so cool to me. That was it. It was like, this is cool. Everybody in the theater is like, whoa, this is so cool. And I do feel like some of it's a little generational. Like a lot of people really are going to resonate with that. Like it felt like space Blade Runner mixed with, Outlaw Star mixed with Akira mixed with Bebop, but with like more energy weapon combat. I'm always going to like something that's got melee combat over something that's a shooter. I like The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2's gameplay. They were really tight, but they're not my favorite genre. I don't like shooters as a genre that much.
Uncharted perfected Tomb Raider. Last of Us did zombies. It's like perfecting space themes games. Yeah, I really hope it's not a Souls-like. Why does everything have to be a Souls-like? Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be a Souls-like. Will I add chapters to this video later? Unlikely, but I'll try. I need to get a full-time editor. Maybe more like Jedi Survivor for combat. Hopefully a little bit more intricate. I just don't see that. Yeah, based on the cast alone, it's not Souls-like. And you could point to something like Returnal and say, oh, well, that had a cast also. And you just, like, unlock new story as you go on. I don't see that at all. Yeah, it feels weighty. Will feel weighty. Yeah. Yeah. And I know we're just looking at one thing. We can watch the trailer and then I'll probably end the day. Um Okay. Music already. Favorite music of any trailer that's ever happened. I love this kind of music. It feels like it speaks to me. You know? Like oh, we don't see it. My bad. Thank you. Okay. Likely mature 17 also. Good. Good. Okay, right. I love this. Alternate language. Really interestingly designed glyph language. So, okay. I have a little bit of like a passing like fetish for good symbology. And this is top-notch invented language. And because this is like a type font of a language that could very easily exist handwritten too without a ton. This is like such a logically designed fake language, right? Salmark, I didn't see the plot of the game might have leaked. Can you post that in YouTube chat? Yeah, the music is very 2001. Ancient Semperian Scripture, 1986. So right off the bat, the suffering of generations must be endured to achieve our divine end. Okay? So you know, like right off the bat, that screams like terror management theory. The gatekeeping ghost of Tolkien has entered the chat. Yeah. 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 I'll look at it. I mean, like, it does seem pretty unlikely. Although, here's the one thing I'll say is that this game is probably closer to release than you think. Yeah, even before the game, I could pick up the Akira and Bebop. Yeah, absolutely. Like, Sleep Easy and I were saying in the trailer, look at the Bebop and Akira vibes. We were saying that to each other during the trailer. Okay. Also, spirals right off the bat. You get me with spirals. You can get me with spirals. I'm a big Alan Wake fan. I love me some spirals.
Then seeing the Porsche, hell yeah. Okay, again, yeah. Look at this. This looks good. People picked out a lot of details on here. Okay. You know, like the cast. Okay, and then what we're seeing here is this is the Outlaw Star crew. You know, this is all the bebop stuff that we're seeing. You know? But then there's like this dedicated individual, this hope to get one person, right? And then Thief terrorizes Blue Star system. Right off the bat, we're getting all this good stuff. That's telling us kind of the genre. And then Kumail Nanjiani, like 3 times. Music still killing it. I'm loving this, right? So you have like the shitty VHS 80s. So like there's this, the retro futuristic aspect is, I think it's uniquely done here, right? And people have brought up like other retro futurist titles. I mean, like, yeah, I'm not saying that the genre is empty. It's a wide genre. Like other sci-fi exists, okay? But I am saying it's a really cool bit of retrofuturism, okay? And like just immaculate tastes, right? Deciding like having these VHS, like space travel was really early for them, but they still, you know, they're like progressing in all these other ways. And as absurd as that is, like from an engineering standpoint, you expect technology to sort of move at the pace that it moves. You know, it's still really cool. All right. Other things that were standing out about it, too, were I like Taddy Gabriel's like Ripley vibes. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Just perfect.
Tell me something good.
Paste it.
Well, you're right. It checks out. He's hiding out around the Superior Moon.
Excellent.
How is that excellent? He's next to fucking...
Okay. Before we end the day, does Metaphor get better? I'm bored with it 6 hours in. I just need to know I didn't waste your money. It gets so fucking good in late September. You didn't waste your money. I promise. I promise. Flatline Connoisseur says, I did not like the game for much for narrative reasons. That was not my experience. Yeah. At all. You stop second week of September. Okay, September the next year then. Okay.
Superior. No one has left that planet in over 600 years. Anyone who even flies close to it is never heard from again.
Superstitions.
No. Superstitions are the crazy rumors about what happened on that planet. These are facts.
You worry too much.
You know what I worry just to write about? I say we wait for him to leave, or how about we find a new lead? He's not worth it. I'm wasting my time, aren't I?
So right off the bat, I'm really liking whatever the relationship is between her and the target, right? Like, it's not worth it. And so, like, as generic as that might feel, it's just one of those things that once you know who made it, you're like, okay, this is really the beginning of, like, an intricate and complex interpersonal relationship. And from Naughty Dog's perspective, it's always the relationships between characters that like help you explore all the topics in sort of an agnostic way, right? And as divisive as some people, or as divisive as to Last of Us 2 was, it was really good at that, you know. And a lot of people didn't like the way The Last of Us 2 made them feel, and it didn't align with their feelings about justice or values, etc. But you cannot argue that it made us look at several topics very agnostically. And so I am hoping that, you know, this relationship between these two characters, specifically Colin Graves, who I'm assuming is an alias for, you know, whatever character Kumail Nanjiani really plays, is will be a way that they explore this, right? And also, you know, Kumail Nanjiani's attachment to the program gives me a little bit of comfort surrounding the other thing that we talked about with Palestine. Okay? I don't think he would attach himself to Zionist propaganda. People didn't like the way that those last two chapters made them feel. Yeah. Relative morality versus universal morality. Sure, yeah.
Can you please claim him? I don't need another hunter swooping in.
Who is swooping? No one is crazy enough to go there.
He clearly is.
He is clearly desperate.
And so am I, so claim him, or I will find another agent.
Anyone else with all your fucking shit? Okay, alright, you know what? There, you're the boss.
Thank you.
Listen, kid. I'll see you on the other side.
I love the CRT. The little CRT scan lines. God, I love every second. The facial expressions are just so good. Like, it just feels like the storytelling is going to be so good. And then this too. I love the actual CD and the music choice. Sleep Easy audibly said, "Great choice of song," when she picked that CD. Yeah, 10/10. In development for PS5. I really don't think it's as far off as we think. Any chance you can discuss Alexander's new video? I watched all 9 hours over the weekend. It was so good. It is so good. So I'm working on getting him as a guest. I know everybody knows this already, but one game of the year in some Australian site. Yeah. Cool. I do think that early 2026 is probably when we'll see it. Yeah. I think we'll see a trailer. I think we'll see a trailer with more gameplay in 2025, though. Okay, real quick, I'm gonna take a look at these leaks. Did anybody send them to me? Let's get back to and just tell you what I think. I'm not gonna read them. I'm just gonna tell you what I think. Oh, I just saw Gene's message. Most anticipated game for 2025 is definitely GTA 6 still. Look, man, I mean, like, Rockstar just doesn't make games that aren't like. They make games that are so good that the only people that don't like them are just people that really dislike things that are good. Like, that, people that, like, that's their personality is contrarianism. Like they're so unassailably good. Like it is, yeah. Like if you look at how GTA 5 and RDR 2 have held up, they're still some of the best games ever made. You know. I'm excited for Expedition 33. I do think that Expedition 33 is really going to be good. I think Expedition 34. How long did I miss? You missed like, I don't know. Like 2 hours and 31 minutes. I think Expedition 34 will be really good. Expedition 33 looks to be kind of short, right? Um and I never played RDR 2. Another victim of backlog purgatory. You know what? RDR 2's biggest problem is its intro is so boring. It is so boring. I hope Phantom Blade Zero is good. Me too. And okay, so here's one thing I will say about Wukong, right? So the intro is great. RDR2. I mean, yeah, I guess, but it's like when you replay it, you're like, I want to be out in the world. You feel stuck. Okay, anyways, we're getting way distracted. I didn't mind the slow burn. I didn't either, I guess. Okay, but listen. All right. So, um we were going to talk about uh GTA 6 Shift the Earth on Axis, yeah. RDR2 is very special. So Expedition 33, I think it's going to be a little short. And it's the studio's first game. But what I was going to talk about was some people did come at me for some of my critiques of Wukong, saying that it was somehow xenophobic. Not xeno, xeno, right? That I was anti-China. Okay. First of all, I have said this very aggressively that Wukong 2 is going to bang. All right? That said, I think it's great that there are more games coming out of China. All right? You know what the best game that's come out of China is? Right now? Marvel Rivals. What's that? You didn't know that was Tencent? It is. And Marvel Rivals bucks. Okay? It's also proof that, like, just make a good game. Make a fun game and people are going to love it. Right? It has nothing to do with hot characters. Concord didn't fail because it had ugly characters. It wasn't fun. You know? More games being built out channel will be a stepping point for them to becoming more progressive. Yeah, absolutely. It's all good. Okay? I want China to make more games. Phantom Blade Zero was one of my favorite games at Summer Games Fest. It's so fun. The combat system is so good. I wish Wukong had that for combat. How long do you think Marvel Rivals will go on for? Marvel Rivals is here to stay, man. Like it felt like kind of a, oh, is this a fad? But like Marvel Rivals' first like big DLC being basically Splatoon is so wild. Like their big first like event being like a big genre shift. Like they're so crazy, dude. They're so goated. Like that is a, yeah. Like if I had the time and energy to make that kind of content, I would be doing so much Marvel Rivals to get into their algorithm right now. Ugly characters didn't help. Maybe you're a contrarian, but you're not excited for Witcher 4 or Intergalactic. Yeah, probably you are. A little bit. And that's okay. Contrarians, like, I can be a little bit of a contrarianism myself, you know, and that's fine. Witcher 4, okay, I'm going to be real with you. It is the best looking thing from like a, is this a thing that's been rendered? I can't believe what I'm looking at thing. It is like from a graphical standpoint, it is, I've never seen anything that wasn't pre-rendered look that good. It is technically kind of pre-rendered, but it's pre-rendered on unreleased hardware. It has a really weird disclaimer. So it looks really good. I will admit that like, one, it's got to be a ways off. Two, like, I just feel like it's probably going to be more Witcher. And where I'm at right now is like burned out with the aesthetic. I don't like that Witcher 4 doesn't care about the lore. I don't think any of the Witcher titles cared too much about the lore. Oh, this is a Ciri can't be a Witcher thing. Okay, yeah, she can. Dude, yes, whatever. I don't like. I could not care less about that. I honestly, I could not. I like, please. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I've read some of the books. I think that the best thing that ever happened to The Witcher was that they broke free of the books. The books are not that good, not that interesting, and the lore isn't that sacred. The CD Projekt Red did a better job with the lore of The Witcher than the books did. So I am fully in favor of them going the way that the games have really pointed them to be. Yeah, man, like if she uses poultices and uses sings is enough to like ontologically disqualify her from Witcher in your eyes, I think that like maybe I cannot take that criticism seriously. I just can't. Like yeah, like there are these hardcore framework by which a Witcher is concerned, but for the most part, all things like change meaning over time and use. And for the most part, the world sees The Witcher as a job. It is a like occupation, right? Whereas like in the real world, we've had that happen with things like Viking. Viking is really a profession, but you hear Viking, and the term has, as time has gone on, um, uh, come to mean more than it is. I think The Witcher's definition expanding beyond this very tight framework of what kind of shit they use and what's in their blood is really like an emergent property of all society. I think it's interesting that somebody's doing that. You know, Bro was locked in without a good editor. Actually, the editing is kind of rough. The games were vast story improvements for me. Uh, yeah, and I think it's totally fine for things to change, for definitions to change. I think the Viking thing is a perfect example. Like I don't know why. Like, why are we holding that kind of stuff so sacred? And here's the thing too. I think honestly, prior to like this insane anti DEI grift, like invading like the 20 to 30-year-old market, male market, like I think if you would have asked anybody like in 2017 who Witcher 4 was going to be about, they would all say Siri and not be confused at all. It's like a new thing to sort of like really aggressively sanctify um you know anything that's like could potentially put any character in a marginalized group, right? It's so bizarre to me. It's so bizarre to me. Yeah. Yeah, fictional lore is usually very flexible if you're a good writer. Yeah. And we don't even know if she's a witcher, really. Like, we don't actually know. She'd be like, I'm not a witcher, you know? But two other people, they're like, hey, we got monsters. We need a witcher. And I don't think, I mean, they could be disconnected enough from the concept of how a witcher is made. Like, they're fucking dumb townsfolk, you know? Yeah, yeah. It's so bad. It's gotten so bad over the past year. Ah. I guess that having the Siri be the protagonist of the fourth game means they chose the Anywhere Girl uh, retires. Yeah. My friend actually interviewed CDPR shortly after the event, and he wrote an article on Inverse about it. Hayes Madsen, and it sounds like your choices in the previous three games will, in fact, have impacts on the way the story unfolds, and it'll be sort of deeper. The Game Awards was great, Sir Binky. How are you? It was very good. We had fun. He'll probably still appear in the game, yeah. She looks like one with two swords. Yeah, see, like that's another thing. Like, Oh, she's clearly a Witcher because she's got 2 swords. Okay. But I thought it had to be that she was a young boy with blood. Like, no. Dude. You call the exterminator in, not because of some kind of dumb blood quantum or like arbitrary backstory. You want your shit exterminated. And most people in the world system of The Witcher, like, toss a coin to your fucking Witcher, you know? Letting my abducted daughter die in the woods because DEI Witcher isn't down. Turquoise! Yeah, exactly. These fucking wokes. Yeah, it's ridiculous, right? So, like, she's fine. Okay, so why I'm not excited about The Witcher 4 is just I'm a little burnout over the genre right now, right? Like, if you want to know what kind of like made me say like, hey, I need a break from that kind of dark fantasy, it's Final Fantasy 16. Like, I'm good for a while, okay? I'm good with dark fantasy. All right? Turquoise Hammer, anti-woke arc. No, he's playing a character. Turquoise Hammer is like a yeah, he's like he's one of us extreme lefties. He's a yeah. He has woke tattooed on his dick. No, so look. By the time that Witcher 4 comes out, though, that might change. And I might be around. So it's not that I'm not excited for it, but I'm just like, look, The Witcher 4 immediately looked like it was like 3 years out. Okay? And might not even come out on this fucking console generation. You know? Do you think history will be kind to 16? I don't think it will. No, I don't think so. Yeah, RTX 6090. I think the gaming industry needs more games like Astrobot. I think it needs more like mouthwashing. I think it needs more like solid indie titles, small dev team titles. But in terms of like the AAA stuff, I still think AAA needs to figure out what it's doing a little bit. Shortening dev cycles is a way that you do that. Subsidizing costs in the most ethical way and preventing crunch is another. And Naughty Dog has been in trouble for crunch before, and it's very clear they're taking measures against that. And one of the ways that you do supplant the human cost is with funding, right? And I would rather see somebody subsidize costs, once again, with a Porsche sponsorship and product placement than gotcha shit. Okay? It's likely running on 50 series architecture. I don't want to say 5090 because there are studio equivalents of 50 architecture that will have their own naming scheme, and that's what it's actually been designed on. It'll be the studio equivalent of a 5090 basically, because there are studio series cards too. FF8 Master C. Art direction, good gaming, higher ups thinking the input towards changes will make more money. Did I read the leak? Not yet. I'm gonna wait till I'm off stream because I've actually gone a little long, and so I've got to call it for today. But I'll be back tomorrow, and I'm gonna play some. I'm probably gonna play some Clive in Tekken 8. Yeah. Here's what I will say. Clive at Tekken 8 reveal was one of the loudest responses in the audience. Okay? And I still like Clive. No matter what my criticisms of 16 are, I think Clive's a cool character. And I honestly think that Final Fantasy 16 is pretty good. Still, it's a good game. It just didn't. I've said my piece on 16. I think there's a lot of stuff that needed to change. But we had Rebirth. You know, Rebirth is the best Final Fantasy in a couple of decades by my yeah, by my estimation. I really don't love all these games being announced 3 to 4 years early with disguised tech demos. I don't like that either. Yeah. I do hope that some of these games are closer than we think. I don't think The Witcher 4 is one of them. I also think that's why he started the show with one that's way far out. But I think Naughty Dog, I think that game's pretty close. Yeah. Yeah. Okami, God, that could be 4 years out. Yeah. So, yeah, no more CG trailers. I will say that at least that most of these weren't CG, you know. But now game development is so hardcore that it takes even rendered like games that are engine, you know, like kind of gnarly. Square has been doing better on that front compared to last decade, yeah. Well, okay, guys, this has been a great stream. I love all of you. Um, and I gotta go, but you guys are the best. Peace out.